Hey there, welcome to the Breakthrough Creative. I'm your host, John McDavitt. This is the place where we talk about the business of art and the art of business. Would you please take a moment and subscribe to my channel? I'd like to keep you up to date and in the loop about everything that's going on. And if you think that the information in these videos is helpful, please share them with the artists in your life, because I think there's a lot of good info in here, whether it's from a guest or from some of my experiences, which is exactly what I'm going to share today. I want to talk about a challenging client situation that involved a lot of money, and it was precarious, and I got through it. But man, people can be difficult. Sometimes it's us. Sometimes we're the ones who can be difficult, right? But you know, sometimes you get involved with a client and you just have a, I don't want to swear, so I'm going to say a humdinger of a time with people, because they can be challenging. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to tell you about this time that I just finished up an enormous mural, and I was looking for my next big mural. You know, I was in search of my next great white whale, right? Where's the next Moby Dick project? And I was looking through the newspaper, and I think it was the Sun-Times. I came across this facility that they were constructing in a nearby suburb, and the business was going to be a daycare. And I mean, it was a big high-end daycare, and it was enormous, and there was a great big wall, and I thought, man, I wonder if they need a mural. So I called them up, and I somehow got in touch with the general manager of the whole project. And he said, yeah, we're looking for a mural. And so I went on in. I saw the facility, I saw the wall. It was 16 feet high by 40 feet wide. And they saw some of my work. They were interested. And we talked a little bit back and forth. I think the job ended up being like a $12,000 job. And it was a short parameter for the actual project. And I ended up designing this jungle scene that had some large trees in it. And it had a bunch of animals, and they were stylized and cartoony, and everything was friendly with big eyes for, you know, of course, the children that would be populating the place. And everybody's happy. I wrote down the agreement with all the terms. You know, this is the artwork, sign off on this. This is the time I've got. It's got to be done by such and such time. And this is the cost. And I need half up front, and I need half at the end. We all signed the contract, and everybody's happy. I'm starting Monday. I go home, get my act together, get my paint, get my tarps, get all my stuff. I've got 2 designer painters that are going to be working with me, and we're all set to go in on Monday. So Monday, go in, bring all my stuff in. I'm getting introduced to some of the people who are working around there and doing their thing. And along comes the general manager of all the contractors. And I said, okay, I'm here. I'm ready to go. And I asked him, do you have the payment, the down payment? And he said, no. I said, oh, okay. We have it a little bit later. He says, well, we get the checks cut from the bank, and so I'm waiting on the bank, so I'll have it tomorrow. So I said, okay, not ideal, right? And some people might have walked off the job right there or held up, but I also knew I had a short window, and I would feel the pain if I get the check tomorrow. So what's one day, right? So do a bunch of layout on the wall. I've got pencil and paint and stuff, just kind of getting things roughed in. And the next day I come in and I find the general manager, and I ask him for the check. And again, bank hasn't cut the check. Okay, so, you know, there's red flags and sirens and all kinds of stuff going up around this whole project right now. So I said, okay, I asked him, when is the check going to be here? And he told me, it'll be here tomorrow. It'll be great. They'll be here. Promises, promises. Okay. So Chris And I and my other assistant were working on this thing. And I told the third person who was working with me that I probably wouldn't need them tomorrow. I wanted to, you know, hedge my bets. And Chris was going to meet me. So I get in to work on the mural the next morning. So we're in day 3 now, right? And I'm looking for the general manager, and he is nowhere to be found. Nowhere. He's not around. So I see his number 2 guy, and I go up to him. And I said, hey, how you doing? Good, good. How are you? All right. Hey, I don't remember the guy's name. Did Mike leave a check for me? No. He didn't say anything. So there's no check for me. No. I said, okay. I said, so I need to get that check. I'm into day 3 now, and I was supposed to have a check up front, and I didn't get anything. He said, oh, yeah. Well, you know the banks, and he starts giving me the same old song and dance. And then I said, okay. I said, so here's the deal. I'm going to pack up now, and I'm going to leave because I can't do any more work until I get my down payment. And he says to me, oh, Mike's good for it. You're going to get your money. Mike is good. And I'd heard that a few times before in my career, and this was too big a job. So I said, okay. I said, you know what? I know Mike's good for it. I know he's a good guy, and I know the money's coming. But I can't work anymore. Well, so you're going to walk off the job? I said, no, I'm not walking off the job. I need the down payment. So Mike's got my number. He can give me a call later and we'll work it out. So I go back over to Chris and say, hey, Chris, do me a favor. Take the paint and take it off the tarps. Will you fold up the tarps, please, and put the paint on top of them? And we're going to leave that stuff here. We're going to leave it here. Now, had they decided, you know, that they weren't ever going to use me or they were never going to pay me and you know, they're just going to keep all that paint in the tarps, I don't know, maybe there was $300 worth of materials there. That was worth it to me, as opposed to them saying, oh, you walked off the site. You walked off the job. You're done. You know, that was a bad faith act, whatever. So I thought, let me just leave that stuff here so they can't play that card on me. I leave. Chris goes home. I go home. I don't hear anything from this guy all day. I'm not happy, really frustrated with the whole situation. And my wife and I decide to go out to dinner. So we get this nice dinner. And when we come back, this is how long ago this was, folks. This was answering machine territory. So there's a message on my answering machine. And I play the message, and it's Mike. And he's telling me how unprofessional I am. And the dude is cursing at me. He's swearing and saying all kinds of nasty stuff. And I'm just astonished that he's coming at me like this. So I said, all right, I got to call him back. And I gathered myself, and I calmed myself, and I called him up. And he picked up right away. And he must have had caller ID or something. He said, hi. And I said, hey, Mike? Yes. I said, hey, I got your message. And then he proceeded to tell me how unprofessional I was and how this was crazy and how, you know, he's telling me all the stuff I'm doing wrong. And so I said, Mike, let me tell you what unprofessional is. Unprofessional is signing an agreement with a contractor that states you're going to pay them half of the money at the beginning of the project and then half at the end, and you don't write that contractor a check the day they arrive. Unprofessional is not paying them that money on the first day. It's not paying them that money on the second day. And it's certainly not paying that money on the third day. Unprofessional is treating somebody like you are treating me, somebody who has showed nothing but good faith to you by showing up for not 1, not 2, but 3 days. And on 2 of those 3 days, showing up with materials and with subcontractors of my own and paying them out of my pocket money that should already be covered by the check that you were going to make out to me. It's a little quiet for a moment. And Mike says to me, oh, okay, yeah. I will have your check for you in the morning. And I stopped him and I said, hang on. I said, I don't want a check in the morning. What I want you to do is I want you to wire the money into my account. Oh, okay, I can do that. So I got him the routing number. I got him the account number. And he said he was going to take care of it. So, I call Chris. I say, hey, we're on for tomorrow. And I get a good night's sleep. I get up in the morning, drive my car over, and I'm on the phone with my bank the whole time, asking them, hey, is there money wired in? Is there anything in the process? And there's nothing. So it was a nice summer day outside. So I'm sitting outside, and Chris is with me, and we're leaning on my car. And Mike pulls up finally, and he says, oh, hey, I wired your money. It's in your account. And I said, well, it's not in there yet. And he says, well, come on in. I said, no. I said, I know it'll be there, but I'll be in once the money is in my account. And at some point, maybe 20 minutes later, I called my bank, and they said, yeah, the funds are transferred. And I was like, okay, great. So we went in, and I got to work. Chris got to work. And I think instead of having 12 days now, I had 9 days to get this done. And I'd worked out this process. So this is a little bit of the technique in the midst of this giant mural. My process was I was going to cover 4 feet of height by 4 feet wide. So that meant, 4 goes into 60 wide 15 times. So I was going to have 15 columns wide and 4, I guess, squares high that I would be able to do that area. I would paint that area, and I blocked it in with the paintbrush. And it was a lot of jungle and foliage and trees. And then, there were the animals in their certain spots. And then I would block it in. I would go across and block it all in with a paintbrush. And I've got, heavy duty wall paint. And then after that dried, I would get on a ladder, and I did it top to bottom in case I had any drips. I would airbrush then the top layer all the way across, 4 feet, 4 feet, 4 feet, 4 feet, and the same way. Then I dropped 4 feet and 4 feet, 4 feet, 4 feet. So what I had is I had this, what do you call it? What do you call it that you get on? A bijabijo that I would stand on. Let me look this up. Scaffolding. I had scaffolding, and it was I think it was 6 feet. I can't remember if they're 5 or 6, what the universal height of scaffolding is, but the first layer. So I got the first layer, and I actually, before I had the scaffolding, they had rented me this lift. So I was going to be in this lift that could go up 20 feet. And I only needed to go up 16 feet, right? So it would get me where I needed to go. The problem was they were building like this tiki hut with a roof that was up against the wall. And there was like about 3 feet, I think, of space. And this lift didn't work over about a third of the mural. So I had to get the scaffolding. And I couldn't even have a second layer of scaffolding because that wouldn't fit between the roof, right, and the wall. So I had to get the scaffolding. And then I had, I think, a 10-foot ladder that I would put on top of the scaffolding. And then I would have my compressor on the scaffolding, and I would have an airbrush with 3 airbrush bottles in my hand and a long hose, and I would make my way up the ladder, and I would then work with the 3 colors I was working with and do my thing. And the only way I would come down is if I was finished with that area or if I was out of paint. So crazy town, right? And that's how I finished it up all the way through. I got done with it. I needed to clear coat it. I hired somebody to do a clear coat for me. And once that was done, they paid me with no issue. I didn't have to wait on the bank. There was just a check waiting for me for the balance. I can't say that I was entirely comfortable with the process, believing that they would have a check waiting for me at the end. But I was absolutely thrilled when they had the check and I didn't have to do anything but say, hey, I'm done. Are you happy? Okay, let me have the check. And no issues beyond that. So what started out as a problematic situation righted itself because of a couple of approaches I took to the client. I am not telling you this is going to work every time, okay? Sometimes people are just going to be unreasonable, and you just got to try to cover your bases as best you can, and that's how I roll. I do my best, you know? And so anyway, here are my 4 points. These are my 4 points that I want you to consider and use when you are dealing with a difficult client, all right? Before you even know they're difficult, because chances are it's not going to show up until a little bit later, right? Once you guys have, you know, shaken hands and you're ready to forge ahead, before you get started, you've got to figure out your terms. You got to figure out your terms. Term is another word for agreement. You got to know what your agreement is. You got to know what the money is, how it's going to be paid out, and what are the expectations for the project. What are you painting for them, or whatever your project is? What are you going to deliver, and by when? Okay? You need to have all of that stuff written down somewhere. You got to have it written down somewhere, and then you've got to sign it as an agreement, and they got to sign it as an agreement. At the very base of having an agreement, you got to have something written down and signed. If you feel like you really need to have a legal document, then, you know, you better get a lawyer involved and you better get that document together. And I've had those in certain cases, but the majority of the projects I do seem to be pretty straightforward, and I just make sure that I've got as much covered as I possibly can. So that's the first thing. You got to have a written agreement, a contract between you and whoever your client is, with all the terms, and then terms especially of payment, and how is that payment going to be doled out. Now, I've had some clients that they want to do a contract for every project, and that is a bit of, it's burdensome. You know, if you're going to be working on a lot of projects, I'd rather just have one kind of overarching, all-encompassing contract with them if we're going to be working for a long period of time together, as opposed to doing something every time. It's like, come on, can we just make this easy? But, you know, to each their own. Everybody's got their own way to work. But certainly on a mural, certainly on a one-off project, certainly if you're a performer or you're doing a show, you need to have that contract and make sure those payments come through. So anyway, that's the first point, right? Have a written and signed agreement. Know your terms. The second one is stick to those terms and stick to your guns, okay? So when I had my client come to me on that first day and he didn't have the check, and he had what at the time seemed to be maybe reasonable, even though it was irritating and unfortunate, you got to decide where you're at in that process. I decided that the risk and the monies that were agreed to in our contract, was worth the extra day. And obviously I decided it was worth a third day of showing up to the site before I stuck to my guns and said, hey, I am done working on this until you pay me. Because if I had just kept on painting and painting and painting and then finished it and I hadn't got my money up front, I don't know if they ever would have paid me. I don't know what was going through his mind. Did he think that I might just do it and be thrilled to have this wonderful piece of artwork in this big, beautiful building? I'm getting paid. And the only way I was going to get paid is if I stuck to my guns. If I kept making excuses for him, oh, he's a nice guy, oh, he's going to pay me, oh, whatever, then I'm just going to get taken advantage of. So you got to stick to your guns, right? And what you're sticking to are the terms of the agreement. It's like, hey, here's the agreement. Like, you signed at the bottom of this. I don't think there's anything crazy. And even if there was, you agreed to it. So let's stick to the terms of the contract. I've stuck to my side. You stick to your side. All right? The third one is sticking to the terms, okay? walk off the job if you have to. That may be the only leverage you ever have. It was the only leverage I had that day on that project was I got to get his attention because I need to get my $6,000. I need to get that in the bank. I need to at least get that to cover all my expenses and some of my profit, okay? So I needed that. And the only way I was going to get it was if I walked off the job because I asked nicely 3 times. I was very pleasant, I was very respectful, and I was very professional. And so then I walked off the job. So what does that look like if you're working for on a project for a client out of your office, or you're working on something, that you can't walk off the job per se, but you're going to stop work, okay? And be prepared, they are going to be upset. They may throw a fit, or if they're a reasonable person, like maybe it's a big corporation and they're a smaller cog in the corporation, and you explain it to them, you may hear them kind of sigh and go, "Oh, I'm sorry. This happens all the time. Our payables are always late. Let me get on that for you." So it's not always the person you're dealing with directly. And I try to make every client that I work with know that I am on their side. And I want them to be on my side. Like, I'm here to help you. I want everything to go well. And sometimes people have bad days. And sometimes people just have bad attitudes and they have a bad way of going about doing things. And, you can kind of discern that as you go. And if you decide it's not going to go well and you can get out of it, get out of it. If you decide that it's not going well for reasons that are unusual, then you can decide how to approach it then. But whatever you do with your terms, stick to your guns if things aren't going well. And then my last point, 4th point, and maybe the most important, it's really important, and it gets stitched in amongst everything else, okay? Don't lose your cool, okay? Don't lose your composure. Don't blow up. Don't yell. Don't become like emotionally crazy in the moment. Why do I even need to bring this up? Because I've seen it happen, and it's ugly and weird and probably isn't going to end well. And I've felt those emotions inside where it was just going to pour over because someone is trying to take advantage of me or they are being incredibly irrational. You gotta keep control of your emotions, okay? Because your reputation is going to be built on how you manage difficult people and difficult situations, and bad word travels much faster than praise and good reviews. All right? All right. So what are those 4 points again? 1, have your terms of agreement written down and signed so everybody knows what the expectations are, right? 2, stick to your guns. Stick to your guns, which means know what your terms are, and if your terms aren't being honored, well, then you got to make sure they're honored. And if they're not, and your only recourse is to stop working, or I can't think of what other recourse there might be. I guess you could talk to somebody's manager, you could, but I don't know. It just seems like the best way to get attention is to say, hey, I'm really confused. You haven't paid. This was our agreement. You're not following the terms. So I've just got to stop until you make payment, okay? Or whatever it is the terms say. And then, of course, the 4th and final point, and it's baked in the whole way, right, is don't lose your cool, all right? Keep yourself composed. You can feel all the emotions that you want to feel or that are just happening inside of you, but you've got to present as professional and present as respectful, even if somebody else isn't being respectful. I hope this information helps you. Believe me, none of these situations that I just brought up to you felt good or feel good in the moment, but they're part of the territory of running your own show or being in business and or even working for somebody. If you're working for somebody, you got to decide how are you going to let people treat you? Because how we let people treat us is how they're going to treat us. Okay? So there you have it. Another episode of the Breakthrough Creative. If you're interested in being on my mailing list, you can go ahead and go down to the show notes and you can click on the mailing list and leave me your information, because I'm going to have some offers coming up this year. I'm putting some courses and trainings together for all of you creatives out there who want to make a living as an artist. And I'm working on a membership group right now that is going to be primarily for visual artists. And I'm very excited to reveal what that is going to be, because I think it's going to be unusual. Like, I haven't seen anything like this out there in the market, and I think it's going to be really beneficial for you. So with that being said, I am John McDavitt, and this is the Breakthrough Creative, and I hope you get busy figuring out how you are going to make a living from your art. Have a spectacular week. See ya.